Hello and welcome back to Rebooking to Mastery, a podcast where I dissect certain books that I've read. My name is Jug and I'm just a master's student just trying to spread some knowledge out to the rest of the world based on readings that I have read. And so the current book I'm analyzing is The 33 Strategies of War, a book by Robert Greene that dissects different strategies, methodologies, and way of life to find yourself in a better state and better perspective as to how you want to see the world around you and deal with the problems around you. So, if you remember the last episode, for those of you tuning in from last episode, we talked about the first strategy in the category of self-directed warfare, which is law number one, or strategy number one, which is declaring war on your enemies, also known as the Polarity strategy. And we discussed the idea that your greatest obstacle is yourself, and you have to focus on a certain enemy or North Star, something tangible for you to work with, and for you to perceive and see, for you to set goals and view ways of finding yourself with better temperance and a better tangible set of ideals or things to work toward. And so the one disclaimer I did provide is that this is not an indication for you to be manipulative. It's not an indication for you to start having no holds barred in whatever you're doing, but rather a shift in perspective to give yourself something tangible, to give yourself something to work towards by having an enemy or an obstacle in your way as a North Star. And so, the next part of this is the idea of the key to solving or the key to navigating through society with this kind of frame of mind. So, the world we are in is hyper-competitive. It's more competitive now than it ever was before. With our access to so many people that have accomplished so many different things, with a lot of people's tendencies to even say post on LinkedIn, post on different profiles, it becomes a very competitive name or status based world that we live in, especially in our more globalized, technological based, connectivity and communication based world. However, it is not like ancient times in terms of competitiveness. Back then in competitiveness, you could be very overt with your challenge towards other people. And you could even be challenged even if you go back so far to medieval times, you could be challenged in single combat. And you could be challenged to wager your challenge against someone else in a fight to the death. Or even as a way to assert your superiority in a very overt way back then. However, in the society we live right now, a lot of superiority, a lot of assertions of one's own talent, skill, or ability come covertly, or they come under the table or underground. One thing to notice is that a lot of people will mask their aggressive desires, they will mask their ambitious desires with friendship, with a helping hand, in quotes, with something that they think will, in the end, serve their own self-interest, but make it seem like they are trying to help you. And so it's important that we stay very, very aware of that and understand that this is how society works at this point in time. And probably will continue to be that way. People will never reveal their true hand until far into the future. And people will mask their ambition with low self-esteem, self-depreciation, and an attempt to make you feel comfortable or relaxed. And in that same right, some people will play the victim. They will allow the weight of the world to fall on their shoulders and see themselves as someone who's been under so much pain and pressure. And one interesting point in that idea of victimhood is that a lot of people who have actually been a source of a lot of things that have caused them disadvantages will never really play or show that card as much. They will have accepted it as a part of their life and worked with the parameters they have. More often than not, people that will play the victim are people whose eyes of privilege or entitlement have clouded what is the truth in front of them. And it's important to understand that those people will guilt trip you. They will find a way to make you feel bad. And it's important to not reverse it and try to be so harsh towards them, but rather be aware of it. Widen your concept of who your enemies are. You can find people working against you. You don't necessarily need to take steps against them, but just don't be naive enough to let them slip past your guard. Note people's friendly gestures and register any emotional change that they have in moments where their mask will slip. Because a lot of friendly gestures, especially ones that are overtly friendly, more often than not hide the opposite covert manipulation that people have in their heads. And one way to kind of figure that out is to say something ambiguous in a situation, or say something ambiguous in a social event or something, and then just see how it's taken. Notice the reaction and plan and work accordingly. Because more often than not, as a person, it is easier to be vague and slippery and formless than to commit to a specific position. It's not for you to be so idealist and be so ad hoc with everything, but rather to play the game and understand that other people are playing the game with you or toward you. And so it's important to play certain tactics, ensure that you have a good sense of who people that want to be in your circle for a true purpose as opposed to a false self-interest based purpose, and figure out accordingly. Because the more friendly people seem on the surface, the more likely they're hiding something on the inside. And it's always important to see that the competitive world that is now is not an overt or in your face kind of competitive. It's a very subtle, underhand, underground competitive. And it's important that we see that so that we do not fall prey to the same mistakes that others have. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Rebooking to Mastery. If you'd like to hear more content, drop me a follow on Instagram and TikTok at Rebooking to Mastery, or drop me a follow on whichever platform you're listening to. Thank you so much, and see you guys next time.